Yes, good afternoon to all of you. I hope I am audible there properly, and my screen is also visible on your end. So, am I clearly audible and screen is okay there? Can you see the PowerPoint
Yes, yes.
presentation? Okay, fine. So, I hope that you are comfortable now with what is the reciprocal lattice and how we can interpret X-ray diffraction pattern in terms of the information supplied in reciprocal lattice. Now today we will be discussing one very interesting aspect of reciprocal lattice, and that is related to actually the properties of electrons in the solids, and that is actually related to the different zone schemes, Brillouin zone schemes. Uh, uh, I don't know how many of you have done this, or although you are supposed to have done it in your BSc, but if you have not done, maybe in our coming classes we shall be doing this. That this block series or block form of the wave function for electrons subjected to a periodic potential. So basically, this equation represents the wave function for an electron in a periodic potential, electron subjected to a periodic potential, which is actually the situation for some electron subjected in a crystal. So an electron put in a crystal, see the periodic arrangement of atoms, which can be seen to be like an electron subjected to a periodic potential. So Bloch had proved a general theorem. This was nothing very complicated actually. He also used a Fourier series, uh, and in detail, when he worked out for the wave function of the electron in periodic potential, he found that it should look like. I hope you remember that psi of r is equal to. It is containing actually two parts. One part is a part which is periodic in space, and then second thing is uh, the wave function itself. Okay, let me try to see if I have shown it here. Okay, maybe I just assume that you know it. This is how you can say this whole part is like UK of R. This part is this part actually is periodic in space. So if we say that okay, periodicity is A, then this part which is appearing in the bracket has the periodicity A. So basically total electronic wave function, let us say this one, can be written as product of UK of our wave function, part of the wave function, or it is some function which is periodic in R. Suppose R plus, R A is the periodicity. Then after each value A, things will repeat, like atoms will repeat, or you can say electron density will repeat. But wave function is not periodic. Wave function doesn't have same periodicity as A. That's the main point here. So we will be doing detailed aspect of it, but what is the outcome of this is that okay, if you take the wave function of the electron at certain point, so now you know what is k. K is some wave vector of the electron. Now we are not talking of wave vector of the X-rays. Now because electron is also a sort of a wave, we can see electron as a kind of wave in a crystal, because uh, electron is a quantum mechanical particle and also has a wave character. So electrons moving in a crystal can be seen like some waves traveling along certain directions. So we don't see electron like a particle in the crystal. So that is why electrons with the help of a wave vector. Or you can say this is also called quantum number for electron in a material. I just let me give you a quick qualitative overview of all these things right now only. When you see an electron in an atom, then you will see that, okay, electron has a set of 4 quantum numbers, right? N, the principal quantum number, L, angular momentum quantum number, M and S, magnetic quantum number, and spin quantum number, correct? So, and the energy of the electron in an atom is function of all these quantum numbers, isn't it? For example, if atom is very simple, like hydrogen atom, energy only depends upon n, minus 13.6 over n square electron volt, isn't it? So that gives you the energy of electron for a particular value of n, the principal quantum number. Now, as you go with more and more complicated atoms, the dependence of energy on other quantum numbers also starts to come into picture. And that is why if you are dealing with hydrogen, then one s orbital have some energy, minus 13.6, generate and have exactly the same energy for hydrogen atom, and that comes out to be equal to minus 13.6 divided by 2 square, that is 4. N is 2 for 2s and 2p orbitals. So since the energy depends only on n, so energy is same for 2s and 2p, and so on. So for n is equal to 3 means 3s, 3p, 3d all have exactly same energy for electron has exactly same energy whenever it is in hydrogen atom, whether it is in 3s, 3p or 3d orbital. But when you start getting more and more electron in an atom, means you start going to other atoms which doesn't have just one proton and one electron. In that case, the energy starts becoming a complicated function of n, l, m, and s. And that is how you can see that, okay, 2s then no longer remains degenerate with 2p, and they have energy which is slightly lower than 2p. Similarly, 3s, 3p, 3d all split in energy. And depending upon various other details of interaction which electrons are seeing in an atom, the orbitals have different values of energy. Different orbitals have different values of energy. Why we are suddenly talking of that, apart from this topic, is because when you consider many atoms coming together to form a solid, in that case, what you have is that the energy of electron not only is a function of n, l, m, and s, but it is also a function of additional quantum number which we call k. So this one you can call the wave vector of the electron. So there is an additional quantum number which is there in deciding energy of the electron in a solid. Means when many atoms comes close to each other and form a solid, specifically we are talking of periodic solid here, the energy of the electron becomes a function of k as well. So that is why we have a very special interest in knowing that wave vector dependence of energy of the electron. And this wave vector dependence of energy of the electron, I mean energy and its variation with the k, which is another quantum number for an electron in a crystalline solid. This this dependence of energy on wave vector is nothing but the band structure of the solid, E versus K relation. And this E versus K relation is a very important aspect of a particular solid, because if you know E versus K relation for a particular crystalline solid, then we can tell a lot about properties of that particular solid. For example, if you have E versus K relation for a particular solid, that is band structure for a particular solid. So band structure is nothing but E versus K relation. We will be talking about E versus K relation in our coming lectures also in maybe much more details. So this E versus K relation, for example, there is a gap, for example, in E versus K relation around Fermi level, then the material will be called semiconductor. So you can talk about nature of the material based upon what kind of E versus K relation it exhibit. Similarly, from E versus K relation, we can talk about conductivity. If there are bands or this E versus K relation is such that Fermi level lies somewhere in between a particular band, then we will say the material is metal. Then whether if it has a band gap, then whether the band gap is direct or indirect, it just depends upon whether the minima of your conduction band in E versus K relation is matching with the maxima of the valence band in E versus K relation or not. If the minima and minima of conduction band and maxima of valence band doesn't match, then we will say the material is indirect gap material, indirect gap semiconductor. And if they match, we call that is a direct gap semiconductor. So a lot can be told about properties of a material in terms of its E versus K relation. We can tell about magnetic nature as well. If the bands, the energy of the electron is in a particular K is actually representing sort of state in which electron is present in the solid. Just like, okay, I mean, if you fix N, L, M, and S, you can fix in which particular orbital is the electron present in a atom. Similarly, in solid or in a crystal, in which particular state an electron is present, along with specifying N, L, M, and S, you also have to specify what particular value of K is electron sitting in or it is having. So that's what is the point of talking about this E versus K relation. Fine. I hope I am able to make it clear to you that what is the role of E versus K relation. Then conductivity even can be followed from E versus K relation. There is something called effective mass. I don't know again if you have done it in your lower classes or not, but then that effective mass follows from E versus K. It is related to second order derivative of energy with respect to wave vector. I hope you have done a relation for effective mass of the electron, which is reciprocal of, it is proportional to, inversely proportional to 1 over del square E over del K square. So if somebody gives you E versus K, you can calculate from that effective mass of the electron. So that effective mass of the electron can be used in Newtonian equations of motion, and we can then calculate conductivity of a material based upon what is the effective mass of the electron. So there is a lot of things which can be really obtained from E versus K. Now, okay, what's the then? What is the point of talking this different zone schemes here? Is actually based upon this very interesting idea. So there is one very interesting property associated with the wave function, that if you take the wave function of the electron in a crystalline material at a particular K, so basically when we are talking of wave function at a particular K, we are talking of in which particular state electron is present in the material. Fine. So K means you are specifying, just like you specify an orbital, you are specifying orbital for electron in a solid. I don't know if it is correct to call electron sitting in an orbital in solid, because electrons are like mobile electrons. We assume them to be like mobile electrons in a solid. So they are not fixed to a particular orbital, but we would say in which particular state, quantum state, the electron is present. We may say it like this. So it is representing the wave function for electron in a particular state K. G, if here is the reciprocal lattice vector. Now I'm sure you won't be confused. What is reciprocal lattice vector? Correct? So if G is the reciprocal lattice vector, then we can prove that psi of K plus G at particular value R, I mean the wave function at a particular point, if I take it at psi of K plus G, then this turns out to be equal to psi of K of R. This we will discuss in detail maybe when we will be talking about electron subjected to a periodic potential. But for now, just remember why I brought this topic here, because here we are talking of this reciprocal lattice vector. So one very interesting property of the wave function is that psi k plus g of r is psi k of r. Means if you add to electronic state any reciprocal lattice vector, that doesn't affect the wave function. That's what is another way of looking at it. And if we apply this and this idea and begin with the Schrodinger equation, then this is the equation which an electron should satisfy whenever in a solid. We won't be writing down the detailed components of Hamiltonian, but we will be obtaining here a very important property. And that property is that, okay, let us replace k with k plus g. Let us add any arbitrary reciprocal lattice vector to the state of the electron, right? Then means we are going, basically adding g to a particular state means that we are going to next Brillouin zone. I hope we have done Brillouin zones, and then you have you remember that relation between a particular Brillouin zone and next Brillouin zone. So let us try to construct a mental figure of one-dimensional Brillouin zone. Assume you have points in the reciprocal lattice. One point is sitting at 0, 0, 0. Other is at 2 pi by a. Then is 4 pi by a, minus 2 pi by a, minus 4 pi by a, and so on. So where is your first Brillouin zone? Around 0. The first Brillouin zone ends at pi by a plus side and pi by a to the minus side. I hope you remember that, right? That's your first Brillouin zone. Now, if you add, so what is G vector in case of 1D case? This is G vector for one-dimensional reciprocal lattice is n into 2 pi by a. I hope you also remember that. What is the reciprocal lattice vector for one-dimensional Brillouin zone? Is n into 2 pi by a. So if I take, okay, I mean, that is going to be clear in the next slide. So let us not get into that. So let us first discuss the mathematical part of this very important result. And that important result is that if I take psi k plus g, now we know that psi k plus g is nothing but psi k, right? So this is very important property that, okay, if I take h, psi k is equal to e k plus, that is going to be equal to e k plus g, because k is replaced by k plus g everywhere, into psi k. Now, if we compare this equation and this equation, what we will find out from here that ek plus g is equal to ek. So this very basic fundamental property of which relates energy of electron in a particular Brillouin zone with the energy of electron to the first Brillouin zone. So basically what it is saying is you take energy of the electron at any particular point. This is going to be equal to energy of the electron in other Brillouin zone, which can be obtained by adding some arbitrary reciprocal lattice vector. What is the aspect of this? What is the technical meaning of this? Okay. I hope you remember that energy for free electron is what? Energy for free electron is given by h cross square k square over 2m. Let us forget this gap part here. I mean, we will be talking about this gap from where it appears. I don't know whether I have talked to you about this in previous classes. No, I think. So anyway, but what is that going to be? If we ignore this parabola part, this gap parts, it is going to be a parabola, right? It looks like a parabola. For ideally electron gas, when there is no interaction of electrons with anything in a solid, which is free electron theory. We will be talking about free electron theory in coming classes as well. So then it is going to look like a parabola. And okay, let me not, there is some problem in this. I mean, I don't know if you are getting this or not. I mean, okay, let me ask for a feedback. Are you comfortable with this? I mean, are you getting what I'm talking here, or are there some questions? Yes. Are you comfortable with what I'm talking? I mean, have you heard these terms or all these things earlier? Or you think that I am just going out of the way? Harish says he's okay. What about others? Sandeep is fine. Rahul is fine. Okay. Yes, other students. I mean, feel free and be honest. I mean, frankly, say if you are not getting something, you just say you are not getting it. Simple. So that I can accordingly try to change my wordings so that I can make things clear to you. Most of you are saying you are okay. Fine. So, well, that's really interesting. Samriti is saying it is okay. Saurabh, what about you? Ankush, what about you? Shagun, what is your situation? Is it clear to everyone? So you're getting it, correct? So means I'm not confusing you. So please feel free, I mean, be frank to share your feedback, because overall this communication should make some sense to you people. If I am saying something, I assume, I mean, because I have done this, I understand it well. So I assume you are also understanding, but it may not be the case. So whenever you feel that, okay, you're losing the context or I'm losing the context, you just uh, freely just let me know. Well, then what is the meaning of this is, so this is a parabola. Then let me let me stay with this slide only. I'm discussing this in detail regarding free electron gas in the next slide. So basically this is parabola, right? So assume that you have, this is the reciprocal lattice. This is G actually. Here K, so unfortunately this part is taken from a different book. This figure is taken from a different book. I couldn't find this figure in this book, but I mean, a figure, similar figure corresponding to this text, but the transformation is simple. G here is replaced with capital K. Okay. So this is actually nothing but first, this is reciprocal space, K space, right? This is also called K space. So half K means this is actually pi by A, because you know what is G is 2 pi by A. So what is half G? This is like half G, which is pi by A. So this is representing first Brillouin zone boundary. Towards the right side, this is first Brillouin zone boundary to the left side. So this is plus pi by A, this is minus pi by A. Fine. This is 2 pi by A, this is K as such. G, I mean 1 into 2 pi by A. This is minus 2 pi by A, and so on. So means if you are somewhere in between, you are talking of first Brillouin zone, information in first Brillouin zone. So what does this property say? E of K plus G is equal to E of K. So let me take any point here. So say E0, let us assume K is equal to 0. So E0 will be equal to what? It is going to be exactly same as E0 plus 2 pi by A, isn't it? So E0 is E0 plus 2 pi by A. What is 0 plus 2 pi by A? This point here. Correct? So E0 plus 2 pi by A. Just a minute. Just a minute, please. Getting office call. Let me see if something is important. Just a minute, hold, please. Okay. Anyway, I'll take it later. Got disconnected. Fine. So what will be the energy of the electron? If I say here, this is 0, 0 plus 2 pi by A, this point actually, right? This is 2 pi by A right here. So energy of the electron here as well is going to be 0. I mean, this one, same. So this is what makes periodic zone scheme. I mean, whatever is the energy of the electron here is going to be the same energy of the electron at here. Same is energy is going to be at. So let me take G is equal to minus 2 pi by A. So the electron energy is 0 here as well. Correct? So this is what makes periodic zone scheme. Then you may say, okay, this is okay for 0. If I take any point somewhere in between, this one, I hope you can follow the cursor. You are able to see this. If I take somewhere in between, then energy corresponding to this will be this one. Right? Ek plus G. I have to add G actually, 2 pi by A. So if I add 2 pi by A here, I will be finding this one. So this is how you can say that energy of the electron in higher brilliant zones is actually going to look like this. Then you may say, okay, what are these lines coming from? These lines are following from this part. So if I go to this brilliant zone, correct? Then corresponding to this energy value, there has to be some energy value here in this zone as well, first brilliant zone. So let me take this energy value. Now K is greater than, of course, now K is, suppose up to here K is pi by A. Correct? Up to here K is pi by A. Let us take K now is equal to somewhere between pi by A and 2 pi by A. So if I take K to be, what is it? Maybe something like 1.2 pi by A. Is it okay? Yeah. Something like 1.2 pi by A. It will be here. So what will be, how can I obtain by applying same property? Let me subtract G now. Let me use G to be minus G, because G vector in general is n into 2 pi by A, where n is some integer. So this is 2 pi by A, 4 pi by A, similarly minus 2 pi by A, minus 4 pi by A. So let me use now G to be equal to minus 2 pi by A. So what I'm doing is, I am taking this curve and taking this whole curve to this point here. Right? If I subtract G, the whole curve will translate back to this point. And that's what I'm seeing here. Right? So this is, what does this mean is that the whole information of second brilliant zone can be brought back to the first brilliant zone. So same thing can be done from this side to this side by adding G here. So this part, this is the second band, you can say, coming from the second brilliant zone. This is coming from the third brilliant zone, and so on. So this zone scheme is called periodic zone scheme. The whole basis of this zone scheme is this basic property, and this is very fundamental property. So is this clear? Are you okay with this periodic zone scheme? What is the periodic zone scheme and how it comes? What is the fundamental basis behind the periodic zone scheme? Is there any question from this part? Any question? And why there is a gap between the boundaries? Oh, this comes because of periodic potential. We shall be doing this when we will be discussing nearly free electron model, or something like Kronig-Penney model, free electron theory. So this will be coming later on in the next classes, maybe in the next unit or next to next unit. I think it is there in. Fine, this is a valid question. What about any other question? Yes. Please repeat periodic zone scheme. Sudesh. Okay. Can you just ask a question if you have any question, so that I can try to answer your doubt, or you missed what I just said? You have some specific doubt, or I just need to repeat what I said? Fortunately, I am recording the lectures. So if you miss the things, repeat would mean, you should better go back and listen to the lecture. Huh? But if there is a specific question, I will be happy to answer. For second case, okay, complete your question. I couldn't get what do you mean by second case. Please type your full question so that I can answer it. Sudesh, waiting for your question, please. Sudesh, can you hear me? How and why we can add and subtract G? Why we can add subtract G? This is because of this property I told you. E of K plus G is equal to E of K. This is a fundamental property, right? So therefore, if I want to represent this information in second brilliant zone, I would like to add G. so that this whole thing is produced in the second Brillouin zone, second and third rather. Right, second Brillouin zone is from here to positive side and minus to this side. So similarly, if I want to get the information from second Brillouin zone back to first Brillouin zone, then I have to subtract G. So the whole idea is actually this fundamental target, which is the reduced zone scheme. So what is the idea of this reduced zone scheme? Is that we don't need to extend the properties or E versus K relation of any material in infinite extended zone scheme, because in reciprocal lattice, if you refer to reciprocal lattice, it is infinite size lattice, isn't it? There is no end. Means you have one lattice point at 0, then 2 pi by a, 4 pi by a, 6 pi by a, 8 pi by a, and so on. You keep on going. So this is infinite size information, correct? So rather than doing that, what we do is we try to bring the all information from higher Brillouin zones back to the first Brillouin zone. And this is the basic idea. This is the basic property which can allow us to do this. So then this part is the information of E versus K taken from second Brillouin zone. This part is the information of E versus K relation taken from third Brillouin zone, and so on. So here is how we can represent the whole band structure or whole E versus K relation for electron in infinite size reciprocal lattice into only first Brillouin zone, and that is what we call the reduced zone scheme. So the whole information can be represented only in first Brillouin zone. That is why most of the cases, wherever you see the band structure and all such kind of representations, they are always represented in first Brillouin zone. We don't go to the higher Brillouin zones because it can completely represent everything else. I mean, higher Brillouin zone information can also be represented in first Brillouin zone. Is this clear or not? I mean, is this okay, Sudesh? Okay. Any other student who has any further question? Sandeep. Okay, sir. Energy is periodic, but why energy in extended zone scheme? So all three zone schemes are equivalent. You can use any particular zone scheme, and most popular one is the reduced zone scheme. So we can't say energy is periodic. We can say yes, energy is periodic in reciprocal space. Energy is not periodic in extended zone scheme. I mean, see, it is just representation. If you use this, if you ask what is energy versus wave vector dependence for electron, free electron, this is h cross square k square over 2m, which looks like a parabola. So if you are plotting only that simple parabola, we are talking of extended zone scheme. But then we realize that, okay, whenever electron is in a periodic potential, its energy satisfies this fundamental property. Then we realize, okay, this is not, this is not the only way to do this, to represent energy of electron in reciprocal space. But yes, this is also another way of doing it by applying this equation. So, okay, we say, okay, we got a new representation scheme. So you may say, we can equally well represent energy of the electron in this manner as well. Then somebody says, okay, why keep these unnecessary things? Because the information in first Brillouin zone is being repeated all over the reciprocal space. So that is why we then finally come to this very important reduced zone scheme. So we can't say that it is not periodic in this. This is the same thing represented in three different manners. This is the same thing represented in three different manners. Now, as long as you understand it technically, you won't say the three are different. They are same. And you know what is the converting equation. Okay, fine. Is there any further question? Well, if there is no question, let's just a quick overview. This topic is to be covered somewhere else as well, but because this is related to our Brillouin zone folding and reciprocal lattice thing, so that is why I thought of keeping these slides here as well, so that you can understand that concept of reciprocal lattice and zone folding in a better way. So more examples will make things more clear. So we will be talking about Fermi surfaces. So basically, okay, let us now come to that free electron model. This is how the energy for free electron looks like, isn't it? H cross square k square over 2m. It looks like parabola. So units are arbitrary. Then you may have somewhere like Brillouin zone boundaries. Let us say A is equal to 1 unit. Periodicity is 1 unit, A. So what will be 2 pi by A? 2 pi by A will be what? 2 into pi, which is pi is 3.14. So this is going to be 6.28. So this is representing like, okay, 2 pi by A to the plus side minus 2 pi by A to the minus side. Correct? Now, what is the meaning of these constant energy points? In one-dimensional case, because we are talking of one-dimensional electron gas, free electron gas. Because 2D case, we will be having not only K, but you will have two components for wave vector, Kx and Ky. For 3D case, you will have Kx, Ky, and Kz. So that total energy in 3D case will be H cross square K square over 2m, where K square now is equal to Kx square plus Ky square plus Kz square, correct? So simplest to visualize and discuss is one-dimensional case. That is why we are sticking to this one-dimensional example. So now if we take constant energy, I mean, we take a particular energy, then, okay, let us take a particular value of K. Then at a particular value of K, say, maybe this is something like 6.5. It's not Brillouin zone boundary as such even, not zone boundary, but if we take any particular value of K, what is the energy value of the electron? This will be one specific value, this one. And there will be two degenerate states here, isn't it? H cross square K square over 2m. So for a particular value of K, one state is here, other state is here. Two states. Fine. Similarly, if you talk of two-dimensional electron gas, so in 1D case, you will be having 2 points, right? If I see this figure from top, I mean, from energy axis, so this is your energy axis. So on this axis, I will be seeing 2 points here, 1 point here, 1 point here. Means at a particular energy value, these are the states where they are lying. So if I try to see constant energy contours for a two-dimensional E versus K relation, two-dimensional case will be a paraboloid. I mean, it's like a two-dimensional parabolic cup, right? Parabolic shaped cup. So if you cut that cup at a particular height, what you're going to see is sort of a circle. So each circle actually is representing a particular value of energy, right? So this is representing constant energy contour in reciprocal space. Now here is that two-dimensional reciprocal space. So you have Kx, it is having a zone boundary at say pi by A along x direction. So this will be Brillouin zone for a 2D square lattice. So you will be having a zone boundary at say pi by A plus pi by A along x direction minus pi by A along y direction. Sorry, towards the negative x direction. Similarly, pi by A along x direction and minus pi by A along minus y direction. I mean, both ways. So this is the first Brillouin zone for 2D square lattice. Now, there is something called, Fermi surface. So basically, what is Fermi surface? I don't know, people are joining till now. Priyanka, why you are joining this time? I don't know. Okay, let me allow, fine. Okay, so what is Fermi surface or Fermi contour in this case? Surface is for 3D case, right? If you have a three-dimensional electron gas, you will get a Fermi surface because that is going to be a sphere. For 2D case, it is going to be a circle, right? And then we will be calling it Fermi contour. Constant energy, constant energy points will constitute a line, which will be a circle. Fine. Similarly, in 3D case, constant energy points will constitute a sphere. as per free electron theory. So that is going to be called a free Fermi surface. So now, if I mean, this is suppose whatever is the Fermi energy, then accordingly you will be having a particular circle, isn't it? That is going to represent Fermi contour or Fermi surface. So what is Fermi energy is? It is the energy below which all the states are occupied and above which all the states are empty. I'm sure somewhere you would have done this. Now what we want to see here is, now I'm sure you have understood those first Brillouin zone, second Brillouin zone, third Brillouin zone, right? Now this is your Fermi contour. Now none of its portion lies in the first Brillouin zone. Now what if we have to represent the whole Fermi contour in the first Brillouin zone? Can we do? Yes, we can do, following those reduced zone scheme, right? Now the question is, how can we represent this whole Fermi surface in the first Brillouin zone? Because if you see, it is lying fully or completely out of first Brillouin zone. It is lying in higher Brillouin zones. So a portion of it is lying here in second Brillouin zone. Now I hope you can identify what is second Brillouin zone. This full triangle is second Brillouin zone. This triangle is also second Brillouin zone. This triangle is as well the second Brillouin zone. This is also second Brillouin zone. Correct? Similarly, a portion of it is also lying in third Brillouin zone. I think this is the third Brillouin zone. This is third Brillouin zone, right? And then some portion of it is also lying in fourth Brillouin zone. Now, how to transform this back to first Brillouin zone is actually the objective. And this is the, this transformation uses that idea of reduced zone schemes. Now, this will be making things more clear to you, I hope. Amit Sharma is trying to join now. I don't know what is going on. Okay, sorry Sahil, I just saw your question now. Is it always reduced to first Brillouin zone? What do you mean by is it always reduced to first Brillouin zone? I mean, we can always reduce to first Brillouin zone. You can work in any Brillouin zone, but it's always better and convenient and rather conventional to work in first Brillouin zone, because in first Brillouin zone, you know in which range I have to take my wave vector. It has to vary from 0 to plus pi by a and then 0 to minus pi by a, right? I mean, it doesn't make sense to unnecessarily work in second Brillouin zone where we have to use some additional factor of say 2 pi by a. Why to bother about that additional factor? So mathematically, it is not a wise deal to keep on carrying additional mathematical numbers. So that is why it is always good and convenient to work in first Brillouin zone. Now, okay, let's try to understand how we can transform. So now this is your Brillouin zone, right? This is your full reciprocal lattice, we would say. How we can transform this part? So if this is now where that Brillouin zone folding relates. So this is your second Brillouin zone, correct? How this transforms back to first? So Ek plus G is equal to Ek, right? So if I take every energy state lying in second Brillouin zone, every energy state, not only this energy state, but all energy states which are occupied, which are empty as well, I take all those energy states and to each energy state, I add G vector. So what will happen corresponding to every energy state in this second Brillouin zone? There will be some energy state here. So what will be those states? So this is length. This arrow is actually an arrow of length G. I have drawn it. So this is 2 pi by a. This total length is 2 pi by a, right? Because this is 0. This is plus pi by a. This is minus pi by a. So what will happen? This whole triangle actually will transform like this. So this base of this triangle will reach here. So each point here has a corresponding point here on this line. And this line will be like this line and this line. So that is how this will transform. And similarly, this triangle, if we subtract G, I mean E of K minus G, now we have to subtract G. Because the target is clear. We have to bring back this to first Brillouin zone. So here we had to add G along X direction to get it to this point. Here we have to subtract G to get this triangle to this point. So there will be another triangle. Similarly, you can take this triangle by adding G to the Y direction. Similarly, we can subtract G here to get this triangle into this. So what you will find out finally is this. So this is representing the portions of, you would say, Fermi surface from second Brillouin zone to first Brillouin zone. So this actually is your full, say, reciprocal lattice. This is your center point. So this portion is coming from this part. This part actually appears here, right? This part is coming from something else, and so on. So this is how we can transform information from second Brillouin zone to first Brillouin zone. Is this clear to everyone, or is there any question from this part? Did you understand it well? This is called Brillouin zone folding. Folding higher Brillouin zones back to first Brillouin zone. So we saw how to get second Brillouin zone into first one. Is this clear? Okay. Anyone else? I mean, anyone has a question? Similarly, now let us try second Brillouin zone thing. So now, okay, let us try third to first. So third to first, I don't know if I have drawn those arrows. I'm sorry. Yeah. So third to first would look like this. How we can get this? So this is the portion of the third Brillouin zone. I hope you remember this was a triangle like this. So if you have, I have to get this back to first, I have to add G vector to every state here, and then this will go down to this. Because if I take this point and add G vector to this, where will this come to? G vector is this whole. So this point will reach here, right? And this point will be somewhere here, and so on. This whole triangle reaches somewhere here like this. I mean, you have to see this triangle would be coming like this. Fine. And if we bring in all those back, so this triangle will be coming here, a triangle here will be coming this point, this triangle will be coming to this point, and ultimately this is what you see. How to get third Brillouin zone into first. So this is first transformation, second transformation, this part. So when you bring in this here, bring in this here, this is the portion you are going to get out of it. Correct? Similarly, if you try this one, this is the portion you will get. Similarly, you can try all others. So now fourth to first, this is your fourth Brillouin zone. Now fourth to first, you can try this way also. I mean, this portion, we need to, if you want to bring it back, so this portion, if you take to this point, this will come here. Then you have to apply two transformations here. One G will bring it to this point, then you have to add another G. This will come here, because if you take this just here, this will still be outside first Brillouin zone, right? So G vector is G vector. I mean, you apply it once or twice or thrice, it will always give you the same energy, right? So what you will be getting out of this is this portion. And similarly, you can construct all others as well. So this is what you call the Brillouin zone folding, and how we can get from higher Brillouin zones to the first Brillouin zone. This we will skip. We'll discuss it in some next class, no problem. And then, of course, this is how gap opens up. If the gap opens up, things becomes slightly different. That is how it opens up. So we'll discuss this in next classes. Maybe because there is some prerequisite to discuss this. So this I will be talking in the next class, no problem. But yes, for today, what I wanted you to understand is Brillouin zone folding, how higher zones can be folded back, or how the energy states in higher zones can be folded back to the first Brillouin zone. Is this clear, or is there any query on this? Yes, please. Is this okay, or is there any question? Feel free to ask question, please, because it's not something easy to visualize. So it's very natural and common to have questions, and rather any kind of simple or stupid, whatever kind of questions, because you can be confused very easily on this topic, no problem. Yes, any question? Okay, it's okay for Harish. What about others? Okay, Sandeep, is it for periodic? Yeah, of course, it is for periodic. It is for crystal. See, if you're saying crystal means periodic. So it is for crystals only. Rather, maybe that is the question. Yes, it is for crystals. Amorphous solids have further complexity. We don't talk of amorphous solids as such. then that is not the thing. Okay, fine. Yes, any other query? Any other question, please? Yes. Well, if there are no questions, then I thank you for your patience. And I hope this added a lot to your understanding. I mean, you really probably have understood the topic, which is supposed to be one of the most complicated topic of condensed matter physics. But it's not that complicated. I mean, if we pay proper attention to the things, it's very simple and logical. I mean, nothing very complex. So don't keep it as a phobia. It's very, but still, if there are some questions left in your mind, you can, yes, put in your questions or even mail me. Rahul is asking, does the energy get changed as the area of the Brillouin zone for higher or smaller? Oh, Rahul, you got it wrong way. The Brillouin zone, the area of every Brillouin zone is exactly same as that of first Brillouin zone. So second Brillouin zone has exactly the same area as first Brillouin zone. Third Brillouin zone has exactly the same area as first Brillouin zone. So that is how we can do one-to-one transformation, because all the areas are same. The only difference is that in second Brillouin zone it is split into 4 parts. If you go back to that triangle, maybe okay. If I quickly try to show, yeah, if you see, this is the full second Brillouin zone. So the area of these 4 triangles is exactly equal to the area of this square. Similarly, if you go to third Brillouin zone, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 triangles in third Brillouin zone, and area of those 8 triangles is also exactly equal to area of the first Brillouin zone. So areas are same. Okay. Yes. Very good. Any other question? Maybe I will be sharing my earlier lectures. Some of you may have missed them. So we have discussed very important and interesting aspects. So that you can get through those video lectures. I am sure, I hope that these lectures will be helpful to you all. So well, with this, let us end for today's class because time is already over. Let us meet on Monday with the next class. This almost have completed our first unit, I think, but still I will do a quick scan if some topics are left. Well, that's all for today. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.